Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome from Citrix Ready team to our webinar. As some of you know, we bring in key Citrix Ready partners to talk about how they integrate their technology with Citrix to put the webinar together. Today, we have a very interesting topic at hand, how you can use Citrix Workspace as a platform to develop microapp integrations. We obviously have a key partner, Fujitsu Runway process. So you'll get to see some interesting things today, how you could convert enterprise applications into microapp integrations, how you could use the Citrix Workspace as a platform to do that, and how Fujitsu Runway process can in fact help you do that. So at this point, let me quickly bring on our speakers for the day. We have two wonderful gentlemen. Let me start off with Brian. Brian, you want to quickly introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi everyone, I'm Brian James. I'm a director and an architect with our global partners function within Citrix, working with key worldwide strategic partners such as Fujitsu.
Awesome, thank you, Brian. And up next, we have Wolfgang, who's the VP and Head of Global Marketing and Partnerships at Fujitsu Runway process. Wolfgang, do you want to tell the audience quickly what you do at Fujitsu Runway process?
Well, I think that you already said the most important part. I'm heading the global marketing and the partnership relations, and I think Brian is going to tell us a little bit more in a moment what Fujitsu Runway process is, so I don't think I have to dwell on that. Let's just get started.
Awesome, thank you. Looking forward to hearing both of you guys. All right, before we get into it, a few housekeeping details. We do have a formal Q&A session at the end of the webinar. But in case you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A panel on your GoToWebinar interface. If there are questions pertaining to audio issues, logistics, etc., we'll try to resolve them and answer them back over chat. If there are questions that pertain to the webinar and would be useful for the other audience as well, we would take that up at the end of the webinar. But please do type in your questions as and when you have them. We are also recording this webinar and we'll send you a copy of the recording within the next 24 hours. So without further ado, let's get into it. If you could switch to the next slide, please. I want to give you a quick overview of what Citrix Ready is. I know some of you may have attended our other webinars. So Citrix Ready basically is a partnership program at Citrix. So whenever an ISV company wants to integrate their technologies with one or more Citrix products, we are sort of the interface for them. At Citrix Ready, we make sure all the products that integrate with Citrix undergo a robust verification process. And this is only to ensure that when you as a customer wants to implement and integrate some of those technologies into your existing Citrix infrastructure, you have a seamless experience. We've obviously done the same with Fujitsu Runway process. So the minute you see the Citrix Ready badge on any of the partner product, you can rest assured that this will work seamlessly with your Citrix products. So that's who we are. We also have a robust marketplace. In case you want to explore Fujitsu solution and some of the others, you could go to citrixready.citrix.com. Next slide, please. And I think that's it about Citrix Ready. Let me quickly hand this over to Brian to walk you through the rest of the presentation. Over to you, Brian.
Thanks very much. So I wanted to start just with a quick explanation of what Citrix Workspace is for those that have not had a chance to experience it yet. Citrix Workspace transforms the way that employees experience work by organizing, guiding, automating their work. And this results in better business outcomes for improved employee engagement. We've seen that studies have shown engagement has a direct impact on productivity. Companies with high levels of employee engagement report 20% higher productivity and in turn 21% higher profitability even. And technology can help save a worker time in performing a task, but if that employee is disengaged, that time saved might not benefit the organization at all. So only by holistically addressing both productivity and engagement can that technology help to transform the employee experience. So how does Workspace help to do this? If I can have the next slide. Thanks. So Workspace helps employees focus and facilitates work by reducing noise. So it organizes information and tasks into a prioritized personal flow. A virtual assistant provides immediate access to relevant content and business data, and it provides a unified omni-channel experience that aggregates all relevant content, applications, desktops and data employees need to get their work done. That includes secure access controls, which enable organizations to protect their most sensitive assets. So IT gets the visibility and controls it needs to support changing ways of working. And today we're going to focus on those simplified, guided, automated work experience with integrated intelligence that will maximize the employee experience so that engagement and productivity result in better business outcomes. Next slide, please. Specifically, we're going to look at Fujitsu Runway process. So they enable their customers and partners to create a cloud-hosted digital application using a low-code development process. And since last year, they've been a partner of Citrix, and together we've integrated the intelligence functions of Citrix Workspace with the power of the Runway process platform, creating the potential to rapidly build truly innovative customer-specific solutions. So let me hand over to Wolfgang to explain more.
So thank you very much, Brian, for this introduction. And yes, so the topic of today's webinar, of course, is how do Citrix Workspace and Fujitsu Runway Process, or Runway Process Digital Suite, as our product is called, collaborate to simplify the digital workspace. And we have chosen one example that I think most of you will easily relate to. It's an inventory management app. Yeah, we'll see more about that in a moment. So the roughly speaking, when, as Brian said before, Citrix Workspace is here for organizing, guiding, and automating work. And the role of Runway Process in this case is to make sure that the organization part of it works even for complex workflows. You see one example here on the screen that I'm going to explain in a moment, and the automation part can actually integrate with any type of SaaS or legacy system that may be out there. So that's how we come in there. And okay, so the example that we're going to look at is this inventory management app. It's actually a real app that we developed for a famous fast food chain, and it shows nicely how Runway Process can provide ease of access of mobile interaction with enterprise processes, and at the same time be flexible enough for integrating additional legacy systems. Yeah, the legacy systems here are the inventory systems that you see here at the bottom. Now, in order to make our example a little bit more easy to understand, we will have three different roles. One is the franchise owner up here, the restaurant manager, of which there are many or several ones here, and then suppliers who supply the material to the restaurant managers. And the franchise owner will be using Citrix Workspace, so we will see the Citrix Workspace interface each time we have an action by the franchise owner, and the the restaurant managers will be using the Runway Process interface as well as the supplier. So the problem that the restaurant manager of our fast food chain has is the following, or that we solved with our app. Before the app, they had lots of manual processes for updating the inventory. They were also not unified. And especially because when restaurants get added to this franchise chain, they might historically come with already existing inventory management systems that might not have been or were not always compatible. So key challenge is both ease of use and extensibility or integration. We will showcase that with one specific use case, which is the restocking process. So at the restaurant, the remaining quantity of a product is regularly checked, of course, by the app, and whenever some action happens that sort of goes below a certain threshold, it needs to be restocked, and there's different ways of doing the restocking. In one case, actually, the franchise owner also gets involved in this restocking process. As you might already guess, this process was historically very time-consuming and also error-prone. We automated this process with Runway Process Digital Suite, but we also managed to successfully integrate it into Citrix Workspace. And if you think back to the nice, very tidy interface that you saw of Citrix Workspace at the beginning, you can maybe imagine how the combination of those two tools allow to harness complexity while at the same time to show it with a lot of simplicity to the end user. And that's really what we're after. So now, to make this whole story a little bit more comprehensible, Brian, let's pretend I am a tech consultant at Fujitsu Runway process. And you, for this story, let's pretend you're the new restaurant manager of the fast food chain. And you now want to know from me how this inventory management process works. Would that be okay for you?
Sure, yeah, that's fine. Well, first of all, for my inventory management, I'm actually just using a very basic spreadsheet. Is that a problem?
Yeah, it's absolutely not a problem, right? With Runway Process Digital Suite, we can integrate any type of legacy system, whether that be simple Google Sheets or even SAP system, anything in between is possible. Capabilities are basically endless for integration.
Great, lucky me. This means that I won't have to switch to another inventory system. So what exactly does the application help me as a restaurant manager with?
Okay, it does that in a number of ways, actually. First of all, it enables automatic restocking, as we already said. It notifies all parties involved in the process when some restocking has to happen, and it also triggers any process in the background, any service process that may be needed, and automatically updates the stock inventory systems after the physical restocking has actually happened. So that process increases efficiency, saves time, and also minimizes errors, right? Because everything is happening in an app rather than in incoherent systems. And the integration into Citrix Workspace makes the process even easier and more convenient for everyone to use. So overall, it just accelerates the process with easy-to-use micro apps. But without much further ado, just let's go ahead and just try it out.
That's great.
Okay, so what kind of things, what kind of functionalities can we expect? Let's first look at sort of the input that the system gets you. We're talking about your spreadsheet-based inventory system, which we see here. In our example, it was a Google Docs for the inventory. We will show in a moment how that looks when it gets integrated into the Runway process. The second thing is that as a user of Runway process, of course, you can always use very different apps or functionalities, and the way it gets presented to you in the Runway process interface is through an enterprise process store. We will see in a moment, or once again, I think you've already shown it once, how that looks in Citrix Workspace, very related concepts. And well, in this case, you can see that the players in the game have also other apps that they can access, incident management, some contract elaboration, but today we're going to focus on this inventory management thing here. So, as I said already, the next thing is to just briefly show how the inventory looks in the Runway process. Of course, not much different, and it shouldn't. It's just now in the Runway process database. All products are listed with their respective quantity and price, and there is a threshold defined under which, sort of, if the quantity goes under that threshold, automatically a process in the background gets triggered that will do something to restore a quantity value that's above that threshold. So in this case, we'll look at what happens with the bags inventory at our restaurant New Asia at High Street. What we're going to do is we're going to remove some bags, right? There's one functionality of the app. And we remove so many bags that the quantity drops below our threshold. So the quantity is now at 3. So now something needs to happen. And of course, that happens automatically. The process in the background triggers through an easy-to-use micro app. It updates the connected enterprise systems with the Google Sheet and ERP, and then triggers the next action that needs to happen.
That's pretty cool. So I understand that the mobile interface hides the complexity.
Exactly right. And now, as we've seen, we have only 3 bags left. And that's when the restocking process is launched. So what happens? First of all, there's going to be an inventory management alert to the restaurant manager. Now the restaurant manager has a task to do. He clicks on go to task as soon as he's ready to interact, and then with a process, and gets all the necessary control buttons in this notification.
So a simple notification gets the relevant user pulled into the process, right?
Exactly right. He gets him pulled in, and he immediately gets full process control. That is, in our case here, actually, at the same time, the restaurant owner, the franchise owner is also alerted, right? And of course, this is one level above in the management hierarchy. And at the moment here, he doesn't really have to do anything. We now see the Citrix Workspace interface. It's in this case, it's Fujitsu branded, right? But it's actually original Citrix Workspace interface, and we can see an alert where the restaurant owner may do something, but actually is not. There is no requirement for him to do so. What he can do is he click on that button and get a little bit more information about what's happening here. But as you can see, there is no call to action for him at this point in time. So the franchise owner, and okay, I think it's also nice to see already one of the key capabilities of Citrix Workspace here, right? Because first of all, the franchise owner gets an alert in a work stream, and this work stream could contain alerts from all different areas of his daily activity. And only if he chooses to say, I want to look at it a little bit more, he clicks in here, and then he gets more detail, right? So that's one of the nice concepts, how Citrix Workspace makes complex processes simple to handle. And but okay, in this case, as we said, it's not really the franchise owner that has to do something. It's actually the restaurant manager who has to act first. So Brian, first back to you as the restaurant manager. The next thing is, of course, you confirm that you don't like the fact that you're below the threshold, so you want to confirm a restocking request, right? So you need to say, okay, choose restock, enter the quantity that you want to restock. That's a variable, right, that you can choose, and then you say, okay, no, let's go for restocking.
Okay, so in this view, it shows the restaurant manager has a lot of information available, but in most cases, they'll only actually need those 3 buttons.
That's correct. And if we wanted to do that with a Citrix microapp, we would probably hide all the rest of the information and present him only these buttons here. And that also shows a little bit how the hierarchy of Citrix Workspace and Runway process works, right? Citrix Workspace to show the essential things, Runway processes to show more detail where required. After you click confirm, right, we go again to alert. This time the alert actually goes to the supplier, right? Because we just said we want to restock, so the supplier gets through the automatic process in the background a notification informing him that a new order of 4 bags was submitted. And then when he goes to go to task, then also this supplier will be dragged or taken into, drawn into the process. Yeah.
Okay, well, so, wouldn't it just be easier for the supplier to get a notification in Citrix Workspace?
Good point. If the supplier is already using Citrix Workspace, yes, then that's the way we would do it. The interesting thing is that we can see here that Runway process allows you to also integrate parties who are not yet using Citrix Workspace, right? So that's actually also an interesting point because it allows to build the way for future upselling here of Citrix Workspace. And then, but yes, when all parties have rolled out Citrix Workspace, then this notification would not happen like this, but it would happen in Citrix Workspace for sure. So now we have the request for the restocking has arrived at the supplier, and we'll look at two scenarios. The first scenario is very straightforward, and we'll handle it very quickly. Is the supplier has bags available. That's the easy case, right? So let's have a brief look how that looks. So if the supplier has bags available, actually the only thing he has to do is make sure the command gets shipped and then confirm that this has happened. We're just briefly showing again the process view of Runway Process Digital Suite here, because you can see nicely that it enables you to always see in which step of the process you are. And of course, this is a relatively trivial process. In many cases that we implement, that's much more complex. And that's information that you may choose to want to have or may not choose to have. And when we do a full abstraction into Citrix Workspace, again, this bigger complexity is probably would be hidden. But anyway, so the next step is, as we said, easy. The bags are available. We click on Command Shipped.
And then I assume my process does some magic in the background.
Yeah, of course, that magic can be more or less complex, right? It can actually trigger a full service process in supplementary systems. Here we just show that as soon as the order is validated and shipped, the ERP systems are updated. So first of all, in the app itself, right, in the Runway Process app, but then of course also in the underlying integrated ERP system, which is our Google spreadsheet in this case. So that was the easy part. The difficult part is what happens when the supplier has no bags available, because in this scenario, someone else needs to take action, right? So as a restaurant manager, Brian, you cannot get the material from the supplier, so you escalate the issue to the franchise owner, right? Or rather, it's actually already the supplier does that, because he said, I'm out of stock, right? I cannot supply that. And so as the next step, then the franchise owner gets drawn into the process. And we remember, right, the franchise owner is using Citrix Workspace. So now we see the view in Citrix Workspace. And in this case, it actually says restocking required, which means there's some action required here now for you as the franchise owner. And let's look at how that looks in Citrix Workspace. So first of all, again, oh, sorry, I should go back here. When you click at this activity feed here, you obviously get more information. At this time, of course, the information offered is more complex, right? Because now we have the situation, you need to decide where to get that missing stock from. And in our example, we will take the stock from the restaurant at New Asia marketplace, right? Because they have lots of bags here, right? They have so many more bags than their threshold. They can easily afford to give a few bags to our poor restaurant at marketplace, and sorry, at High Street, sorry, at High Street, and that's what we're going to do, right? So you you decide to take that inventory from a restaurant and then give it to the other one.
So that's actually quite simple. So even though the supplier's out of stock, my problem as a restaurant manager can still be solved, really quickly and easily by getting stock from a partner restaurant.
Yeah, right, exactly. And from a, let's say, workflow organization point of view for the franchise owner, it's important to see that he doesn't have to leave his Citrix Workspace environment. he can do everything right there and manage all the tasks right there from his Citrix Workspace, even if this should involve multiple different applications. So then next thing is now you have validated the restock, which means you have decided that some bags will be removed and moved over to our high street restaurant. You've actually chosen to remove 37 bags, right? So we've gone down to 58 bags at Marketplace now, and High Street now has a nice quantity that's above the threshold. Everything is fine. And also, of course, the same will be reflected in the ERP system in the background. And again, let's remember, due to the integration capabilities of Runway Process, it's totally irrelevant what type of inventory management system you might happen to use in the background.
Okay, great. So what I've learned is that activities can be triggered through microapps in Citrix Workspace or more traditional notifications like email. For example, if the supplier would be using Citrix Workspace, he would act via microapps, meaning you would just need to click Command Shipped or Out of Stock and the notification itself. And then on the Runway Process app, he gets a full visual process control and is able to modify the information.
That is correct, right. So Citrix Workspace at any point in time could give you access to a detailed task view as well. But of course, the philosophy of Citrix Workspace is to reduce information complexity wherever possible, right? And whether you do get a more detailed view of the task, sometimes will also be made dependent on your actual role in the organization.
Okay, understood. Thank you, Wolfgang.
Good. So thanks, Brian, for participating in this role as our restaurant manager. And I hope I was able, first of all, I hope I was able to answer your questions as a restaurant manager, but more importantly, in the direction of our audience here, I hope we were able to show you how the combination of Citrix Workspace and Runway Process Digital Suite allows two things. It allows to reduce complexity of information in daily work tasks. That's basically the key role of the Citrix Workspace component here, but at the same time, it also allows you full process control, complex integration capabilities, and integration capabilities with all sort of systems, even legacy systems, and that's the part of the Runway Process component here. Yeah. So thanks very much for your attention. If you have any more questions, we'll be very happy to answer them for you.
Awesome, great. Thank you so much, Wolfgang, Brian. I think this was very refreshing to get to hear the customer's side of the story as well. At least for me, it was quite refreshing. All right, to the audience, ladies and gentlemen, now's the time. The ball's in your court. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in and we can take them up now. So I have a few questions, Wolfgang. So can any Runway Process developed application be integrated into Citrix Workspace? Yes,
absolutely. Yeah, the Citrix Workspace, we adhere to the standard interface that Citrix Workspace offers for app integration, and any Runway Process component or app can be integrated. Yes.
Okay, awesome. And you showed one example of a legacy system integration, right? The restaurant ERP system. Can we assume this is possible for any type of legacy systems, unsupported applications as well as processes?
Yeah, yes, that's also possible. The reason is simply because Runway Process is a low-code platform. Runway Process is a low-code platform specialized for integration, for portal development, and for easy to use mobile apps. And in the integration part, we have, first of all, a relatively big number of predefined connectors already, but we also have very powerful capabilities of building additional connectors and complex APIs, basically, as we call it.
Okay, I see. All right. So what you're trying to say then is, Run My Process can really help a company's entire back office to be brought to Citrix Workspace. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep. If it can be digitized or digitalized, we can do it with Run My Process.
And I think more than just a back office. I mean, I have worked with these guys on some demos where we've included IoT sensor information and things like that. So, it's really what can you imagine as a process flow, and then we can look at where we can integrate along the way, and ultimately have that user interaction, the notification or the kind of input from the Citrix Workspace, if that's what you want.
Yeah, thank you for adding that, Brian. Yeah, that's a very important point. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. So, business processes often involve a multitude of applications that sort of need to be juggled, and that sort of generally pose problems for centralizing information and action. So how do Run My Process and Citrix Workspace harmonize these processes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so somehow maybe that's actually more a question for you, Brian, right? Because the combination of Run My Process has this enterprise store that I showed at the beginning, but actually this is now more the domain of Citrix Workspace to do this multiple app juggling, as Rubal called it.
Well, I think it's a combination. So, it's very easy for us to integrate Citrix Workspace with the Run My Process platform. And then once you get onto that platform, there are many connectors, as Wolfgang says, but there's also a workflow process. So at different points through that workflow process, we can start to understand who needs to be involved. So where we have processes that involve multiple applications or multiple people or multiple stages, and one example that springs to mind was a kind of maintenance process where there was a stream of the workflow which went off and dealt with an ERP system and placing an order for a spares kit, and there was another stream of the process that went through and actually booked the engineer. But it was no good the engineer arriving until the spares had arrived. So again, this kind of workflow is monitoring as it goes through and triggering, and then at the point of that trigger, obviously there is information there that helps Citrix determine who the user is that trigger should generate a notification for. So the complexity isn't really an issue for Run My Process, and then we are the kind of interface to the user. As I said, we will help get that message, that key point to the right person, and do it within the stream of their day-to-day work within their feed within Workspace.
Yeah, and actually what I really like about the Citrix Workspace concept is that it gives you this stepwise control, right? You have these notifications that we've been seeing in the message stream, and then you actually click on sort of some expansion, right? That you can see more information about what you're about to do, and then you actually have your call to action. So I think it's really a very convincing, simple but convincing concept of how to structure work in very parallel work streams.
Right, makes sense. I think Dr. Rahul Hajare from the audience is trying to ask the question. So all I received, the question is number 12. I think if that's a typo, please feel free to type that question again. In the meanwhile, Wolfgang, if people want to find more information about Fujitsu Run My Process, is there a website? Where can they go?
Absolutely, yes, of course. We have a beautiful website that's easy to find. Probably if you Google things like low code or digital integration, Google will automatically direct you there with a certain probability. But yes, just go to www.runmyprocess.com and you will see not just some explanation about the technology, but also a very broad scope of use cases that we've been dealt with over the many years since our creation. And it's really very broad set. Sort of the common denominator you will see it's always non-trivial. It's enterprise grade processes. Many applications have to do with portal development, but it goes across all industries, logistics, medicine, public sector, you name it. Yeah, please feel free to go there. And if you have any questions, you of course have a contact form there that will be very happy to call you back.
Awesome, great. And just to add to that, ladies and gentlemen, if you want any information around the Runway processes integration with Citrix, they also have content available on Citrix Ready Marketplace, which is at citrixready.citrix.com. So if you do a quick search for Runway process, the profile will show up, as well as the micro app that they've developed for us. So I guess that's all the questions we have for today. So Wolfgang, any final words before we call it a day?
Well, yeah, first of all, thanks very much to Citrix for the opportunity to present in this round. I think we're very convinced of of our joint offering here. It's a powerful tool for the new business age, let's say. And thanks for our listeners too. Yeah, I can only hope and wish that we can generate interesting discussions from this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Wolfgang. Brian, any final words from you? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Oh, there's a challenge. No, yeah, no, thanks everybody for joining. I know it's always horrible to think of questions on the call itself or the webinar itself, but there's contact details available. Please do feel free to get in touch and discuss your ideas or questions or thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian. And thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for taking the time out to attend this webinar. As I said earlier, we'll send you a recording within the next 24 hours. And everybody, thank you. You have a great day. And this now concludes the webinar.